Times really are changing, everybody. E3 is dead. Yep, this is after a series of leaks and announcements that major companies would not be attending the event. With that happening, the Electronic Entertainment Expo has been confirmed by IGN to not be happening in 2023. And this news actually was so well read that IGN, I mean, you'd imagine IGN can handle traffic, but they actually crashed. Here's what two sources told them in an email that was also sent to members of the ESA. They said that while E3 remains a beloved event and brand, maybe to some, that the 2023 version simply did not garner the sustained interest necessary to execute it in a way that would showcase the size, strength, and impact of our industry. There's also a press statement. Here's the bit of it that matters. We appreciate and understand interested companies wouldn't have playable demos ready, and that resourcing challenges made E3 this summer an obstacle that they could not overcome. And that apparently ReedPop and the ESA ReedPop are actually going to be executing the event. They will continue to work together on future E3 events. But is that really all that's going on? Because we're actually in a world where it is far more about having your own fans. We're no longer really at a stage where we need to be doing a glitzy thing that we invite a bunch of journos to. Now, obviously, they will be doing activations in the press with journalists, going to whoever's doing whatever in and around the summer, and we'll get to that soon, like doing demos and stuff. But for a lot of the big companies, they're kind of realizing, can we just do this ourselves? Straight to our own audience. We will get all of the views that we need, because actually turns out E3 wasn't the news, we were the news, at least for the big successful ones. The strong companies have realized that they actually hold the audience, they hold the value, not E3, therefore it no longer makes as much sense. I mean, they get to control everything. Unless, of course, they're going to Jeff Keighley, who had a curiously timed tweet. Before the body even hit the floor, Jeff Keighley said, "Join together to celebrate what's next in video games. Summer Games Fest returns live Thursday, June 8th, streaming live everywhere." So, alright, Jeff's just, they're on the floor, they're down, Jeff's coming in, back of the head, clean, smooth, professional execution from Jeff Keighley, I've got to say. Now, we do have other things happening. We've got Microsoft Bethesda, who have got plans for their own personal showcase on June 11th. Ubisoft have told VGC that they will not be attending E3, but there will be an Ubisoft Forward on June the 12th. Thanks, Yves Guillemot. That's the least cool birthday present you could have given me. Now, we've also got things like the PC Gaming Show, Guerrilla Collective, the likes of Wholesome Game Direct, Black Voices in Gaming, basically. There are loads and loads and loads of different, kind of like little micro directs and showcases. They'll be clustering in and around that time. So what's actually happening here is a bit of decentralizing. Because you'll notice that E3 is happening for all intents and purposes. For any of the ways that you or I would have engaged with E3, it's happening. It's just a bit more distributed. The thing that's happened is that the ESA have been cut out. And I suppose anyone who would be going to a convention floor, they are being cut out from having that in one place, which definitely does have its issues. As an example, it is very handy for something like a big Gamescom. From the business side of things, me and Thomas would have went to Gamescoms. Obviously, that was a part of getting the bill beyond signed, but as a part of that, everyone's in one place. It's all very localized. You can have 25 meetings or 20 meetings across 3 days. Some people have more, actually, and you just get so much done in 3 or 4 days, and it's handy to have everything be there. But ultimately, when it is very much about gamers finding out about what's next, companies making their big marketing beats, you don't need that expo side of things. That's best done by the likes of Gamescom. So, is this the sort of creaking groans of an industry that's struggling to catch up with modern advancements in marketing? Is it just the fact that they are unable to compete? And I think the answer is, in many ways, yes, but also, Gamescom is big. PAX is big. We've got Tokyo Game Show. There's lots of other things, lots of other consumer-facing events that are self-sufficient enough to run perfectly fine. And some of these events are even ran by ReedPop. ReedPop, they run PAX. They're the new management of E3. Post-2022, they're doing it for the ESA. So it's not even like the people trying to run E3 are bad at doing events. They do the very successful PAX. So what's going on? And that's where we have some sterling work from IGN's news team, who have got a bit of an inside scoop for us. So seemingly, ReadPop actually did everything they could to make this work. Right? So in 2022, it was announced that along with ReadPop and industry connections with the Gamer Network of sites, which means Game Industry Biz, Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, that they would be making for this year a truly industry-focused event, with their aim being to be exactly what developers, publishers, and press need to do their jobs to the best of their ability. That it was even going to bridge the gap between an industry convention and an actual consumer-facing one, with 2 days that were dedicated solely to ensuring the press could do their work, which is just wonderful. I mean, actually trying to do your job in Gamescom in the days before it's a public expo, which is when a lot of the business stuff happens, you can get so much more done than, and it does help that like that stuff is sequestered into its own side of the convention, like very far away from the consumer bit. But that is really important. And actually, you may be like, oh, what's this biz concerns? I don't give a shit. That stuff does actually matter for like the developers, publishers, the people who are actually going there for work to do their jobs. It's like a weird mix because it is industry and entertainment. So they're apparently just trying to do 2 days so the press could have a really useful press event, get a lot of work done, which would produce a lot of content for the industry, and then 2 days where the public could go in and have a public-facing expo. Now, IGN was apparently going to be invaluable in all of this. They would have been a major part of it, which is hardly a surprise given the past. So, IGN reporters spoke to a bunch of people in publishing and public relations who generally have knowledge of event strategies. They all expressed concern. Many told them that they hadn't heard of anyone else who was planning to attend, and some said they felt like there was a big lack of communications from the ESA and ReadPop as to exactly what they should expect. Several described this as a situation where everyone was waiting for someone else to be the first to jump, but nobody was willing to take the leap, and time ran out. Kind of interesting, right? Nobody was willing to commit to being first. Because, of course, if you commit to going first, well, now you've got to get all your travel arrangements for your massive number of people, and it's a whole bunch of work. Several said that in past years when E3 had happened, they'd recalled already having all of their plans firmly in place by this time in March. So, one of those things, the industry just not, And also, a lot of those companies would have quite a lot of decently insider information, right? Desperate for information that could help them make informed decisions about whether or not they should be allocating a big budget for a show floor booth and, the people to staff it in just 2 months' time. Basically, a lot of this coming down to cost, because the potential cost of your demo or trailer being rushed out the door and your audience dismissing it, that's high. What if you can't have a demo ready? Like, if you can't, why be at E3? Because you could do your big event, but then as a part of doing, your big E3 showcase thing that's just a presentation, well, what if you also, because it's a customer-facing thing, have it be playable and it's a bit rushed out the gate? And even if it's really good and customers really like it, well, what if you've rushed it out the gate and now you've burnt your team out, having to crunch together a 2-month demo, probably incurring a lot of team, health issues. It's like company health stuff, and also technical debt that you probably accrued from rushing. These are the sorts of things that these companies will be thinking about. I mean, why risk some future backlash when you don't need to, and you can do it in a way that, purely just you have total control? And in the material cost here, IGN has heard things that just paint a messy picture of the context of market over the last while. So, lockdowns in 2020 and 2021 prompted companies to significantly slash funds for future events while also laying off their event teams, with sources through the industry telling IGN that publishers have yet to replenish their event teams to pre-2020 levels. Even if companies wanted to go to E3 or Play Days or LA in general, many basically are not prepared because they don't have those staff. Or if they are, they're spending that money in events that have got fewer questions about stability, like PAX and Gamescom. And speaking of Play Days, well, that's also a Jeff Keighley thing. So there's apparently a more positive mood towards other LA-based event happening around the same time that is a part of the big Jeff Keighley's going to, replace what a lot of legacy people did. In contrast to all of these concerns, feelings were mixed to positive about Jeff Keighley's Playdays, an in-person media-only event that last year took place over 2 days in early June, around the same time as E3, and has been confirmed again. They also have reports that unlike E3, there are games locked in for the showcase that are likely, of course, tied to the Summer Games Fest, with plenty of companies being willing to go on record to IGN. So Bandai Namco and Tencent, through their Level Infinite brand, both confirmed attendance at Playdays to IGN, the latter saying they found it to be an ideal experience for showcasing our games to the media. Now, Playdays is not as massive an event, it's not a consumer event, it's a totally different kettle of fish, but for the bits that matter for these companies, if they can, do their own announcements in a way where they know they can reach their own audience, and then they can just get all the press to a nice, purpose-built event, that obviously makes sense. So with that said, what about the ESA? Because obviously the ESA, like E3's been all over the place. People have basically spent the last decade saying, E3's slowly dying, and, now it's been cancelled. There has been, things been cancelled before, and just loads of instability around the event. So this is what they said. This is what the ESA president and CEO, Stanley Pierre Lewis, I don't know, whatever it is. We're paraphrasing to hell here just for the sake of brevity. They say 3 factors cause the issues. Number 1, timeline for game dev has altered since the pandemic began. Economic environment means that companies have got to reassess how they invest in large marketing events, and companies are experimenting with how they handle the distinction between in-person and digital events. To the question, do you get the feeling your members don't want this anymore? Remember, this is members of the ESA, so that's not consumers, that's the big companies. Because you could even have companies that have, signed up to the ESA thing, but don't go to the ESA's big expo, which has now been cancelled, which is so awkward. We did our best to reshape. In the end, companies make individual business and marketing decisions about what works. It's an evolving landscape, and we want to ensure we're meeting those needs. So the question is that if E3 is going to continue, how would it be done? Does it need a complete reset? And the core point is they need to create a dynamic and sustainable model for E3 that meets the changing needs of the... Can you see why we had to cut this down for brevity? It's a lot of just, funky stuff. I found during the whole E3 2023 campaign, at times there was a level of animosity towards the event. Why was that? Well, just said, didn't feel it was like that from his experience, so... Useful. To the question, do you think there were things that could have been done better? Was communication the issue? They basically said that their communication and processing of exhibitor needs was in line with what was necessary. So that's certainly running a bit counter to IGN's reporting. They repeat that it came to have timeline and economic headwinds that were very difficult to surmount, returning to the idea that significant investment for any digital shows, but also human capital to bring the volume of people over, that's obviously one of the things that impacted them. And even for when he was asked, what about Nintendo, Xbox, Sony, the biggest events, basically it was an avoidance answer. And generally speaking, I don't think there's anything humongously interesting. They're saying that E3 going doesn't impact the advocacy work they do for the industry. Now, I will say sometimes that advocacy work is really bad, because that's pro-industry, maybe not pro-developer and player advocacy work. Really good example is the copyright stuff, where basically there was copy protections for other forms of media, music, TV, film, books and stuff, to be replicated, digitally, or just replicated, whatever, for research purposes, for archival, history, the actual academic side of art, I suppose. Those copy protections are there for the other mediums, but to get it for video games, the way we should be treated like a real art form, because that's what we are, and the ESA lobbied against that. So just to say, ESA, not friend. ESA wants, obviously, less regulation, they want the loot boxes to happen because it makes their members the most money, etc., so do remember that. And I think that's one of the reasons why quite a lot of gamers over time, they will have always thought, the ESA, they back up the people who make our games. And I think over the last 10 years, as there is more of an informed consumer base who are, I guess, more critical of those big powers that be, they're now turning a bit more on the likes of the ESA. And I wonder if that's why there was generally quite a lot of clouding on like E3 as a concept, being the ESA event, obviously not on the people actually running it, who are all just trying to do their best, including ReedPop, who do loads of great work in the industry. Is there a plan for it to return? No commitment right now. There is no commitment of a 2024. Basically, may come back, may not. So that could be it. Combination of all of this and Jeff Keighley just being like, I'm Jeff Keighley. I have Dorito Pope power. I have Dorito Pope power, and I'm friends with Kojima. So you can't stop me, ESA. I'm going to do Summer Game Fest and the Game Awards, and I will soon be called Jeffrey Video Games. Who knows? Who knows? But certainly what Keighley's been able to do has, I think, been... It's quite weird because you'd normally say, like, oh, he's the plucky up-and-comer. No, he is good at acquiring capital, good at acquiring, like, I guess, proper investors in the projects that he does. But I suppose he has been able to kind of, like, jiu-jitsu the establishment a bit and really just, I mean, yeah, as much as I see video games trying to replicate the Oscars and just, you know, kind of makes me feel a bit, I mean, hey, the game and all the player, he does do it pretty well, and he's just, again, helped to body E3. And I suppose to finish it off, I think this is the quote that does it. This perhaps explains why so few companies are willing to play ball, despite sources telling IGN that numerous publishers collaborated with ReedPop on defining exactly what they wanted out of E3 2023. Their initial participation and subsequent reluctance has led to a sense of betrayal within ReedPop, which has been tasked with, you know, basically bringing E3 back from the grave. Feeling that they've been left to shoulder the blame for the ESA's past mistakes and publishers' present-day fears. And ultimately, given that ReedPop have a good track record with other things, I am not at all surprised if that is the case, given IGN's reporting and given, I think, the broadly evasive situation here from the ESA. So there you go. E3, it's a bit dead. But that doesn't really matter because across the world, game companies are realizing that they do not necessarily need all of these big things. I mean, here's a really good example. So we just found out that The Pale Beyond was one of the top 20 selling games of Steam in February of this year, which was really cool. It was like a little Steam event. I've only found out because somebody linked it to me on Twitter. And the thing with The Pale Beyond is, you know, versus, say, like another game, or two other games from Fellow Traveler, you could say Citizen Sleeper, Genesis Noir, those are both games that, I suppose because those teams had like more of a track record and stuff, you know, they got more, you could almost call institutional support than we did with The Pale Beyond. We got very little institutional support from, I mean, we had Chris Schilling championing us over at Edge Magazine, so you rock, Chris, and we did have like a few advocates, people who found the game, really liked it, but like we just didn't penetrate as much. Yet I know that we were able like to sell at a level that everyone involved is really, really, really happy with, because at the end of the day, we came with the audience and word of mouth spreads. And when I think about how I do things for the future of us, I am not thinking about, can I get an interview with IGN? Can I get this? Can I get that? Can I do anything? Any of that? No, I'm entirely realizing this is about community. Direct to consumer, instead of doing it via the filter of some glitzy event or a bunch of hoops you've got to jump through. Because when you're going direct to consumer, the thing that matters is your relationship with the people who are supporting you and the thing you're making, and if they're going to love that. I think that is really good. Because you see, when it's all about you having to go through like getting the E3 spot, landing loads of interviews, doing all of this stuff, that is what gives the incumbents power, right? The existing infrastructure and the way that somebody has not been able to penetrate as, those various professional networks, that gives the incumbents power. That makes it harder for people to break in. But in this new world, as an example with us, we're able to come in, we're able to be like, right, we've got like a smattering of articles, but basically nothing. We don't have much of a marketing budget. We have not taken this game to any expos like PAX, like Gamescom, like any of those. We didn't do any of that from a consumer-facing method. We just went to our customers. Fellow Traveler went to, their audience of narrative game players, and by going directly to people who we think we will like the game with and that we've established a relationship with, it turned out we didn't need any of that legacy stuff. That's really good. Now, obviously, we're able to crowbar in there by generating a bit of an audience, but you can very much see on YouTube, like, there are so many, like, up-and-coming developers who are, they are taking this model so successfully. And I think we're just like this little indie encapsulation of a far broader thing that is, like, think about it this way. Do I spend thousands of dollars, even for something like Gamescom? Do I spend thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars? Obviously it would be pounds, but do I spend all that money to be able to show off, like, our game at Gamescom? Maybe that's nice to have, but if that money went into staff wages and things that increase the quality of life working here, and maybe we're able to put more videos out and better get our message across to our audience directly, I'm obviously going to choose the latter, because it's the thing that just makes the most sense from a risk-adjusted perspective. And I'm actually thinking now for these larger companies, like, for me, what would be a really painful budget to do a big, like, live event thing, and maybe we will in the future if it makes sense, whatever, but for them, all those numbers just amped up so much, because when they do an event, they need to have, because it's not just what you see as a consumer, they need to have multiple event coordination staff. And when I say multiple, I truly mean multiple, on both the consumer showfront side, but also on the business development side. They need to have people, managing the schedules of other people. They need to find maybe, a third party to come in and help them run things, or perhaps, like, have their own whole events team. Like, you are getting into a lot of payroll, a lot of travel, a lot of stuff. And they're just seeing, like, hang on, we don't actually need any of that. And especially for them, because they can just rely on, we're Xbox, we'll get covered anyway. We don't need to do E3 with the show floor. What are you on about? Because at the end of the day, this is the internet. Twitch exists. You don't need a show floor that journalists go to. New media is kind of changing the game, and I don't know. They never got that cultural momentum that the likes of, a Gamescom have. And I really think that, the things that are the most rock solid, I would hope, is stuff like, Gamescom is just so big, it'll be fine. Even things like DreamHack, where DreamHack, like, it's a LAN experience with tournaments, and, like, it's this incredible, gaming mecca, basically. Like, that seems great because it's so purely focused on the actual, this is an expression of your love for these games and their communities. Go have fun. And I think the more that you feel big corporate, ain't gonna be that. So that's it for today. Maybe the end of an era, maybe not. Next year we'll see. But ultimately, it will be replaced by Jeff Keighley doing things and everyone doing the same thing anyway. I suppose what's happened is that ESA and whoever they would get to organize the events have probably just been cut out. So there you have it. That's it for today. There's so much content on the channel right now. I think we basically have, like, daily videos all the time. So check out this next one here. Yesterday's video was also pretty damn awesome. But otherwise, have a great day. See you next time.